So, Liz, when you overcome that first hurdle and you're starting to look at markets, because you're geographically constrained to some degree in any business, well, maybe not, but in some businesses, how do you think about changing, going to that next level, tackling a new market? What kind of analysis comes into play in order to really hit global numbers?
For the first probably 10 years of our business, well, we're a Canadian company, so by definition, every time we sell something in the States, we're exporting. I mean, we are actually 90% of our business for the first 10 years was coming from the States, very little from Canada. So we started exporting. So we set up our business to look like a US company. You couldn't really tell we were Canadian. So we already knew how to do distribution and exporting to set up warehousing and whatnot. And so then when we looked to go globally, when we finally had a product that we felt there was going to be worldwide demand for, we started to find key distributors in other markets. And you pick your distributors carefully based on this kind of channels that they can serve. And really it's a question of making sure that you have enough product that you can satisfy the channel, because it's kind of stupid to go and build up all these channels and not be able to satisfy them. And a lot of people actually have that problem. They don't really realize it. They have all these people wanting their products, and then they can't fill that pipeline fast enough, and that can also cause you to implode as well. But I think to export, the most important thing to understand is the culture into which you're exporting. And the price they're willing to pay. One thing people don't really realize is that European prices all include VAT. And now with the internet, that's one of the biggest problems for companies exporting, is because your distributors need to make a margin. Plus they've also got to put VAT into that price. So now all of a sudden, for you to make money and your distributor to make money, the price in Europe has got to be something like 50% higher than it is in the States. Yet people in Europe can go online and say, well, why is this thing $100 in the US and it's now 200 pounds in Britain or whatever. And that is a big thing that has to be overcome. So you have to figure out how to deal with that kind of margin structure as well. It's a tough one.
So business challenges, distribution challenges, cultural challenges. Do you go about that, overcoming those challenges, by hiring someone local, or do you just do the analysis and you feel like you can do it as a Canadian company entering a European market? What's the strategy? How do you do that as an executive?
Yeah, you really form a relationship with your distributors. You have to really understand them and what their goals are, and you want to pick the ones that are not going to destroy your brand, or the minute things go sour, that they start to sell out your inventory at a really cheap price. There's so many things that can go wrong in that. And one of the biggest challenges today with the internet is that people can buy your products from one country at a certain price, and then all of a sudden sell it for way less. Then the local market is charging for it. And so you've got all these sites on eBay and on Amazon.com where your price has gone wild. And there's, it's very, very difficult to control your pricing. So that happened to us sort of like the first 10 years. When we came out with our new products, we realized that we had to be very, very, vigilant on what happened on the internet. We're very careful about what internet retailers we allowed to sell our product. And the second thing we did is we hired excellent legal counsel. And so now you won't find products with our pricing with problems with our products, because the minute we see an Amazon retailer go below our minimum advertised price, we shut them down. And there's certain things you can do using trademark violation and other kinds of arguments to get those products removed. And eBay will comply. They've got a compliance department. Amazon will comply. And it has been really an important thing to sort of make our pricing consistent around the world.
I want to ask Nick that question, because you did it at Google. You did the emerging growth. Why don't you talk on this topic?
Around entering a new market. Well, I think there's a couple components. One, I think, is internal, and the other one is external. So Liz talked about external components, but really, or internal and external. Internal being legal, external being distribution. So we were looking at markets where we had a presence, for one thing. There would need to be infrastructure that was sufficient to support what Google was doing, and if there wasn't, is that a play that we could get into? So looking at the whole ecosystem, from how the internet was arriving to how it was getting onto someone's device and they were using Google products. And then we'd figure out where we would need to play and what size of that opportunity was for Google, and whether we had the gumption and the ambition to play in that market. And oftentimes we would find an opportunity that was huge, actually more times than not, that we'd have to say no to because it was too far outside of what Google wanted to do, or what California Google wanted to do. And so a lot of it was no. A lot of it was a strategy session around looking at the size of the opportunity, where you need to play, who the local competitors are, what the dynamics were, how we would go about getting into the market, and then actually making it successful, and then post entering the market. So a lot of times people think about there are all these users, we can get there and capture this small percentage of this large number and be successful. But then what? What comes in after? Service and support, governmental intervention, other players that you might be stepping on their toes, and what does that mean? So in this case, in emerging markets, a lot of it was the big telcos, and how could we play with them versus against them? And so we went through a lot of that internal, external analysis, and oftentimes we would be presenting our case internally, and it was no 9 times out of 10, and for good reason, because it's a big bet with time and money to go into a new market, and so you want to make sure you get that right. And even that's at a large company like Google. You can imagine for a small company, you really need to pick your battles and keep your eye on winning the war, not just spending all your time and money and energy on a new market. So combination of things.